What's going on, everyone? Got an exciting podcast for you all today, something a little different than we normally do on the channel. I have Eric from Tech Sales with Higher Levels. A lot of you may be familiar. In fact, I know you're familiar because I can see in my audience analytics that a lot of you are fans of his channel. But Eric reached out because he'd seen some of what we'd been talking about here and what we do on this channel and thought it would be a good opportunity to work together and join his team in the Higher Levels platform, which we're excited to talk more about on this podcast today. But before we get into it, Eric, you want to say a quick hello and tell the audience a little about yourself and who you are and what you do?
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Connor. Obviously excited going forward to be working together. And yeah, really quick background we can dive more into, but I've been in tech sales now for 5 years. I've gone from SDR to now working with strategic Fortune 100 accounts. Outside of that, I was actually previously an engineer, really did not like that career path at all and made the switch to tech sales. About two and a half years into my tech sales career, started making content. And then over the last 2 years, it's kind of grown way more than expected into the platform Higher Levels. My co-founder, Chris, is not here today, but he's been a huge part of it as well. And yeah, looking forward to kind of diving in and helping your audience out.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. When I first got on here on YouTube, you were one of the first people I found. And people on my channel know I'm not a fan of a lot of the content out there. There's a lot of BS and people with questionable credentials talking about tactics and how they've succeeded. And that was part of the reason I got on here. And you were one of the people I found where I'm like, these guys are legit. They actually know what they're talking about. Gave me a little hope for our niche on YouTube. So I was excited when you reached out. And I was just curious, what was that moment for you when you decided to get on YouTube? You were like, I've seen enough. I actually have to get on here and make a channel and start making some content. What was that switch? What was the switch that flipped? And yeah, if you want to share a little bit about what brought you on YouTube.
Sure. Yeah, it was funny. I was about 2 years into my career. So the first year I transitioned into tech sales, I was just like heads down, trying to learn anything and everything I could. And then I also reached a point where the second year I actually started helping a lot of people on Reddit, like the sales subreddit, break in and giving advice. And then I was doing that for 6 to 9-ish months. And like a lot of people were like, wow, this is valuable. I had people literally like reading comments and like in-depth responses that I had made like 4 months prior and being like, hey, could I like schedule some time with you? And to me, after doing that for a while for free, I was just like, you know what? I see so many common trends here and common questions of people who are trying to break in that like, I could probably solve this and answer all of these questions by like making videos on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And so there was a little bit more that went into it, but I just kind of reached a point about 2 years in where it was a combination of both seeing tons of patterns and trends of people trying to break in. And then I think kind of, what we similarly align on too. I think when I first started making content, it wasn't so much like the scammy stuff that I feel is kind of out there in the tech sales space now, but it was like, I would be answering questions from people who watched like a Grant Cardone and a Jordan Belfort video on YouTube. And they thought that was tech sales. And like, those guys have been very successful in their own right, but that's obviously very different than tech sales. And so at that point, I thought it was kind of worthwhile to make like a distinction. And then super long story short, I had made like 3 or 5-ish videos, actually walked away for like 3 months and didn't think about it. And then I came back and like, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot I made those videos. I logged into the account and like one of the videos we made had like 900 views and we got like 40 subscribers. And I was like, oh, like let me just make a video a week and see what happens. And then it's kind of gone from there. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like my story was similar. I think it's that moment when other people are reaching out to you, asking you to put together content like this. Hey, do you do calls? Do you do trainings? Because for me, I mean, I'd been in tech sales 5 years before I ever started a channel. I started teaching a lot of the stuff I teach on YouTube just in my regular work, just from people either reaching out to me, seeing that I had done well. I was actually a SDR manager at the time. So I was training a lot of SDRs who were reaching out for help. And a lot of people were like, you ever considered doing this outside work, or do you do more like individualized personal training? And so I never had this vision to get on YouTube. It was more, I had enough proof of concept, I guess, and people asking about it where I was like, okay, I think this could probably work for a broader audience. And then the other piece of it was, yeah, I was frustrated with what I was seeing out there, because I remember when I was new, tech sales did not come naturally to me immediately. Like when I came out of training, I was struggling the first few months in those questions, like, is sales for me, stuff like that. And then you go online and I'm trying all this stuff, like the videos with like hundreds of thousands of views, and not to get too deep into it, but yeah, it just wasn't working for me. So I just tried to make content for myself like 5-6 years ago, how I would have wanted to have been coached. And it was just stuff I wasn't finding on YouTube, but you were one of the hidden gems. So I'm glad we connected, and excited to be working together going forward. But
yeah, no, I think that's definitely the best way to do it. Is like, I had no intentions when I started my tech sales career of like making content. This is exactly that. It's like you just reach that point where you started doing it for free, and then you're like, you know what, like this is clearly working. Like even at a very small scale, it's like the feedback you're giving is helping somebody. And then it's just like, you know what, let me try making videos. And I think that's the best way. Whereas I see, you know, some people, not even calling anyone out, but it's like some people like start a new career and it's like immediately they like want to give tons of advice. And yeah, so mixed thoughts on that for sure.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm excited for the rest of the conversation today. So this is going to be really useful for anyone, honestly, anyone who's currently an SDR, definitely for people trying to break into the industry, considering a career switch, or they want to get into tech sales, because we're going to talk about, well, one, just why tech sales is a good career. I mean, both of us have been in it for quite a while now. We've clearly found it to be a fulfilling, promising career, but we're going to keep it real. We're going to talk about who it's for, who it's not for. We'll talk about what it's like breaking into tech sales, because I know you've spent a lot of time the last couple of years literally helping hundreds of people break into tech sales. So you're probably the go-to expert on YouTube for this. So definitely for people trying to break in. And then we'll talk about what's changed in the last 5 years, what it takes to succeed in that first year to actually get that account executive role, because most people likely don't want to just stay in the SDR role. They want to promote to an account executive. So yeah, we can dive right in. I guess we could start. I mean, for you, what you made this, you said you were a solutions engineer, or an engineer, and you made the switch. I guess, why'd you make the switch, and what have you found about a tech sales career that's been more fulfilling than the initial career that you had been pursuing?
Yeah. I was an engineer for 3 years. And then I also had about a year's worth of internship experience in college. So basically 4. I just got to the point. So in college, I was a student athlete as well. And I was training 8 times a week, very competitive environment. And I think engineering for me was like, I was decently good at math and science in like high school, in college. And I never really questioned if it was for me, but the honestly, right leading up to my graduation is when I started to doubt if engineering was for me. And then I got into that career path, and it was kind of like sunk cost of, I realized probably 6 to 12 months in that it wasn't going to be the long-term path for me. But I had also put so much time and energy into getting an engineering degree, which is really difficult, and all of these different things that I probably held on to it for too long. There were a few moments, not throwing shade at any one company, but like to be honest, one of the funniest things to me is like, credit to all the smart engineers out there. Like, there's one side of it that I realized I didn't have the obsession that some engineers had. And like, if you're not obsessed with something, you can be okay at it, but you're never going to become like top 10%. So in that sense, I kind of like fell out of love with it. And then 2, it's like engineers like to scrutinize and optimize everything. And I just remember there was this week where I was in work, about a year and a half in, I paid off my student loans and was just like, what am I doing here? And then I had a meeting like a Thursday morning, and I was a support engineer. So I would take calls from people in the field. We would fix like some pretty serious issues, and they would oftentimes leave a survey. And our manager, for 45 minutes, we had a meeting talking about how our survey score was going to change from 1 to 5 to 1 to 7. And like, they created an entire presentation on this for like 25 minutes, gave a 25-minute presentation on why the scale was changing from 1 to 5 to 1 to 7. And then for 20 minutes, like 20 more minutes, people were asking questions about, well, you know, what would it mean? You know, how is this going to affect our performance? It's like, dude, this could have been an email. Why are we even talking about this? So anyway, all that to say, it's like, there were a lot of moments like that where I was just like, I'm wasting my time. We are over optimizing for something that at the end of the day doesn't matter. And on the flip side is like, I was working really hard because I wanted to like progress my career very quickly. And after about a year and a half, I got a 2.7% raise. And I was just like, this is not going to work for me. So there's a lot more I could break down, but yeah, that's kind of my background in a nutshell. So
sounds like a long 20 minutes.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, glad you made the jump. For me, I think it was a little more straightforward. I didn't always have the dream of working in tech sales. It's not something I thought about. I actually majored in finance in college, and my senior year, I'd been applying to, it was early on in my senior year. You were just getting the career fairs going. I applied to a couple finance consulting jobs that I was not passionate about. My other major was marketing, and my internship was in marketing. I feel like that was one of those fields that sounds cool when you think about it. And then when you actually work a marketing job, especially an entry level one, it's like the worst. So I was like, all right. So I was actually I was like, so I really did not like that internship. And I was like, damn, is this really going to be it? Like, is this what full-fledged professional working is? I'm just going to not like my job. I was working with no one my age. It was people mostly 20 years plus older than me. And then I landed on a tech sales job at a career fair of mine. I kind of stumbled into it. And the more I looked into it, I was like, this is a really good opportunity. It's good. It's surprisingly good money for an entry-level position compared to the finance consulting ones I had been looking at. There was clear career progression, sounded like a nice work life. If you created it for yourself, you were working with people all your own age, getting experience at market leading companies, like working with some of the biggest companies in the world in decision makers at these companies. I was like, wow, at age 22, that's pretty good experience. So I kind of jumped in. Like once I got the offer, I jumped in and never looked back. But so mine was a little straightforward, but yeah, it's been a good career. And I guess, what do you think are the biggest benefits of a tech sales career based on the people you work with, and are other people joining for these same reasons, like the career progression, or what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, for me, it's the career progression for sure. You know, there's a plus side and a negative to this. You know, I think a lot of people like to paint a rosy picture of like switching to tech sales, and in 5 years you could be making 300,000 a year. And a lot of people glance over the you could be because like I don't want to paint this in a downside, because absolutely it's worked out. And I think for those who really want to go after it and dedicate themselves to it on like a 5+ year time horizon, that earning potential is absolutely there. So that's been the biggest thing for me is like, I think, again, it's there longer term, depending on what you want to get out of your career path, whether you want to go up into management, whether you want to start your own company, the opportunities are there. And I think even just at a personal level, at least speaking to someone with my kind of background who's like entrepreneurial, but also has like an academic background of like engineering or like high achieving, like STEM type of major. I think so many people like have this dream of starting their own company, and sales in no other way exposes you to like what a customer is actually thinking and feeling. And like, I don't know that if you're an entrepreneur, you have to be in sales for like 5+ years, but I see so many smart people like thinking like, I want to start a company, or I want to do all these different things. And they're so disconnected from what the customer actually wants or how to make things that people genuinely want, that I think if you approach sales the right way, there's just a lot more, in my opinion, that you can extract out of it from a career growth, an entrepreneurial type of growth, management growth. Like there's so many more opportunities if you perform well and commit yourself to it that are there, that I don't think are as common in other career paths that may be more stable, but the upside is not quite there, or it's going to take an extra 5 to 10 years to get to where you could be if you come in and assert yourself as a top 10 or so percent performer in sales. So
Agreed. Yeah. To me, it's a problem solving job in helping people make decisions, whether it's a yes or no for whatever product or service you're selling. You're promoting it and positioning it in the best way you can, but you're ultimately, the decision's theirs, and you help people solve problems and make decisions. And I guess going off that, what do you think, so that's who the typical, like that's what a person would be looking for in a sales career, and the type of person who would succeed. Who do you think who is it not for? Because I think there's a lot of common misconceptions about what a tech sales career is and what it takes to succeed, and yeah, what a career is actually like. What are some of those big misconceptions you see when people join the higher levels platform and they come on?
Yeah, I think whether it's students in the platform or people commenting on YouTube, like I think I didn't know that this would be so beneficial going into it, but I think my general approach has been, if you're going to go into a sales career, just mentally bank 5 years. Like, you are going to give it 5 years. Whatever happens, happens. If you don't like it, you can transition out. But I know you mentioned earlier, like the first 3 to 6 months, you maybe felt like inadequate, and that's a huge part of it. And I think in my case, I benefited a lot from my athletic background. I transitioned to a new sport in college, and I sucked initially and got to a point where I was pretty good, and that took like 2 years. And so I think, again, different from other careers, like there's some similarities, some differences, but like you need to expect that like it's a little bit more intense in terms of like outcomes focused. There are so many jobs that I had as an engineer where you could just do enough, and if your goal is not to be a C-suite or a VP, like that's fine, right? But I think if you really want to strive for that and you're using sales as a tool to rapidly progress your career, like the pressure is like different. I wouldn't even say it's on. I don't want to like scare you out of like the first 12 months. But that's why I say it's like I see a lot of people that come into it. They think, oh, I need to be making 100K by the end of year one. Like, even recently I had some different students that just landed their really great starting point jobs. And they were like mad that they got like a really solid offer, 75 to 80K OTE, and they wanted to negotiate for 100. And it's like, listen, like, if you have the mindset of getting to 300K a year within a 5 to 7 year time frame, negotiating for like 10 to 20K more upfront in year one, like if you have a legitimate reason, ask for it. But like some of these people didn't have other offers, and they're sitting there thinking like, well, it's not worth it to me if I don't have a 100K job. And it's like, look, if you're focused on becoming a great salesperson over 5 years, you go in there and crush it in 6 to 12 months. Either your company is going to give you a raise, or you're going to get poached by a top company who understands your value and wants to pay you 130 to 150 like that within 1 or 2 years. And so anyway, all that to say, I don't know if that directly answered your question, but I think like that's the biggest thing I see with people on the outside looking in at this career. They want to come in, they want to get like that 100K salary right away. And it's like, listen, year 1 and 2, sure, make some money. But if you really dedicate yourself, taking all the content in that you can, really latching yourself on to top performers and doing the right things you need to be doing, year 1 and 2, the salary is like an afterthought, because it's year 3, 4, 5, and beyond where you really start rapidly progressing salary wise. And I think there's one message I could get across to people outside looking in, that would probably be it. But I don't know your thoughts. Yeah.
No, that's my number one. People are in too much of a rush and their expectations are too high for how much money they're going to start making immediately. It's really easy to read numbers on the internet and see people talk about it, but you have to put in the work and actually become worth that. And it takes time. So that's number one. Another one I see, and I'm so confused by why this is such a misconception, is people believe it's tech sales is like this laptop job where they join because they're like, I want to work on my own hours. I'm like, that's not what tech sales is. Like, especially in the account executive role, you can't be like, work in a deal cycle where there's multiple solutions engineers involved. You're probably working with implementation partners, and you have your manager and your VP asking you questions, and you're just like, nah, I'm not online. I'll get to it later. Like, you can't. I think it's the rush. I think people come in because they hear it's a good work life, and while that's true, I think you can work towards and like earning a good work life for yourself, but you have to put in the work up front, especially when you're new as either an SDR or an account executive. Like, a lot of times it's the opposite. In the beginning, in order to get ramped up, you have to work hard. And I always caution people, because when they come in looking for that work life, the people I see doing best in tech sales are the ones who want to go above and beyond. They have that hustle mentality. They like the idea of a performance-based career, that the harder they work, the better they perform, the further they can get ahead. So I'm always a little cautioned by how much of a rush people are in to start making these arbitrary over 6 figures in less than a year, 300K in 2 years. And then 2, just how much of a what the work life is really like, because the people most successful in tech sales I see generally work harder a lot of times than people with these more stable jobs. And then, yeah, I really always harp on that hustle mentality, like mindset thing, because it takes a certain mindset to succeed really in sales in general, but tech sales specifically. If you're the type of person who just wants clear tasks laid out for you, this is how it's done, here's what you need to get done, and then your project's complete and you're good for the week. That's not really what tech sales is like. There's no instructions. Like every territory is different, every company's different. You have to be a problem solver and figure out how to succeed on your own. There's no roadmap to success. So
when I think like work-life balance too, it's it can come depending on the situation. You still got to be ready at any given time to work 60, 80-hour weeks. Like those will happen, they're unavoidable. But it's like, again, if you are putting in the work, for me, like my first 2 years, it was like 8 to 10 hours in the office and another hour or two generally at night, and some weekend work on just like self-educating and doing the things I needed to be doing. After that 2-year mark, I had tried so much, I had taken so much in that I was in a good place to now sit back and think like, okay, how could I optimize this and get the same results with less effort? But unless you do that work up front, like it's not going to happen. And even when you do that work, like if you change companies, I'm coming up on almost at 2 years now at my current company. The first 8 to 12 months were a total grind of like doing this again, over investing in like, figuring out my territory, figuring out the sales plays and, messaging and all of these different things that worked, listening to tons of recordings of people who are top performers and doing really well on calls. And then like, if you commit to doing that up front, then you can have a little bit more work-life balance. So I'm sure we could keep breaking that down, but totally agree.
I think it comes down to what you said about optimization and getting your processes down. Everything's going to feel uncomfortable for you when you're new, even the simplest things. And I just think back to that first year as an SDR. I struggled that first quarter as you got to learn new things like even the CRM system. And everything takes more conscious effort. And I just remember by the end, like the third and fourth quarters, I was getting like quadruple the results that I was getting that first quarter in seat, but it felt like I was working 1/4 the effort. Like it didn't feel like I was getting 4 times as much done in 1/4 the time. It really compounds quickly, but you have to put in the effort to learn those processes and optimize your work routine. So yeah, that's big. All right. Do we want to jump into actually breaking into tech sales, which I know is top of mind for a lot of our audience? I guess, this is what you've been focusing on for years now. What are you seeing in 2024? A lot's changed on how to stand out as a candidate, what they should be focused on, what opportunities are even out there, because I think it's different than even 2 or 3 years ago. What are you seeing broadly about people trying to break into tech sales?
Yeah, it's funny. Like the market, it's a funny like catch-22 in my mind. The market has cooled a little bit from like the peak a year or two ago. Also, when you had a lot of people, I feel at that time talking about like, I'm making 300K my first year in tech sales, which is total bullshit. It's funny because it's like a lot of those types of people who are in it for the complete wrong reasons have completely fallen off, along with all of the people that attracted. And while there are a lot of people like applying and, for instance, we just had a student literally took a screenshot. He just broke into Ramp, the #1, like fastest growing tech company in the world right now. It had literally over 5,000 applicants and he still got the job. And he didn't do anything crazy over the top. Like for people that are actually committed to this, you've got to understand that if you're doing this the right way, out of the gate, you have narrowed yourself down to like 5 to 10% of applicants. And that's where I see a lot of people right now getting discouraged is they're like, what should I put on my resume? And how should I say all these different things? And it's like, yes, those are kind of important, but if you're not treating the job or the application process like the job itself, don't even bother. And so with that, there's a lot that goes, much further into that. And, it's not just message the hiring manager, cold call the hiring manager. It's like, how do you actually phrase that? What are the things you should do? So I think the people that are actually putting attention to detail, the people that are actually executing at a high level and seeking out guidance from top performers, whether that's YouTube, whether that is, you know, the higher levels platform, whether that is people in their own network that work in the industry. I think a lot of people want to jump the gun. They want to like fail fast and like apply in mass. Definitely do a little bit of that, but then very, very quickly iterate and actually be focused on the right things, actually know what you're talking about. And even as an example, I can't tell you how many times like our general advice, and there's a lot that goes into this, is apply and the same day message the SDR manager, message all of the relevant personas. And there's so many people that just misstep on that. They'll literally message the hiring manager. They'll have a great message, and then the manager is like, hey, have you applied to our internal system so I can forward your information along? And they're like, oh no, let me do that now. And then they get glossed over for 3 to 6 weeks and the position's filled because they're not doing the basics really, really well. So
Yep.
Anyway, just in summary, it's like, to everyone out there who has been thinking about this for a long time, it's more than possible. I would say even more so, because so many people are just doing low quality. They've kind of given up on this dream. They're not really putting their best foot forward. And if you take 2 extra weekends, 3 extra weekends to just get your stuff absolutely dialed in, people don't want to believe it, but that literally can be all that it takes. 3 extra weekends to get your name in the hat at some great companies. And then within 2 months, you're going to have multiple offers, and people just don't want to do the work, quite frankly. But anyway, long-winded answer, but yeah, I don't know. What are you seeing?
I like it.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I love what you said about the basics. Before I ever got on YouTube, that's always what I talked about, even in just my full-time role, is people stress so much. I mean, so I have a unique perspective because I was an SDR manager for 2 years. So I've literally conducted 100 plus of these interviews. I've had countless people reach out. I love what you said about showing off characteristics that you would be using in the SDR role, like doing the role in the interview process. Like, do you follow up with me? Sometimes I'm busy. It's like, did you just send one message and expect that to be it? But it's even things like once you get to the interview, like, yeah, the resume, honestly, like from my experience, once you're at the interview, the resume's done its job. Like, I don't care if you had a 3.2 GPA or a 4.0 GPA, like unless there's some red flag. Like if you're like a 2.1 GPA, I'm like, okay, maybe I'll take a look at that. But like in general, the difference between a 3.0 and even a 4.0, I don't know what that means at different schools or your major, anything like that. So like once you've gotten there, the resume's done its job. And I think a lot of people over stress about these niche situations, like their cold call role play and how well that's going to go, and these niche questions. And for me, it's like, you just got to nail the basics. And the basics for me, I put a lot of weight when I was a manager into questions as simple as, why do you want to go into sales? Why do you want to work for this company? A lot of times you'll get variations of that, like, tell me about yourself. What led you to the interview today? Why are you a good candidate? Because those are the most obvious questions you should be expecting as a candidate getting asked. And if you're not prepared, like if you don't seem like you're prepared or you're coming up with the answer on the spot, like, I think it's because I'm a people person or something like that, and you don't have some like answer ready to go, that tells me so much about like how much you prepared for the interview, how serious you are, how much research you've done. Is this how you're going to prepare on your day-to-day for the role? So and then people get so caught up in like things like the cold call role play. I've done so many of these, and it's like, they're all bad. Most people haven't made cold calls before. It's so hard to make a mock cold call sound like a real cold call, like ring, ring, ring. It's like, that's not how it goes in real life. So it's like, you got to focus on just nailing these basics. To me, it's those taking control in the first 5 minutes of the interview with questions like, why do you want to be here? Basically, is like the main theme is, why are you here? Why are you excited about this opportunity working at this company? Why do you want to go in sales? Have you thought about maybe what you want to do next? And then it's other things like the types of questions you ask at the end. Don't be the candidate to not have any questions. Again, showcasing what you'll be like in the role in the interview process. Maybe making a comment about what you researched about this interviewer on LinkedIn and asking about their career and saying that that's the type of career that you're looking for and what their experience has been like. Having good questions prepared, I think, is really important. But all of this is so basic. Like if you just sit down, like you said, for a weekend and hammer out your answer for why sales and why you want to work at this company, you can basically take that and apply it to all the interviews you end up doing. And yeah, I think a lot of people overthink it. And I think there's this image that it's really hard to break in to tech sales right now, when in reality, maybe it is a little harder, but I think if you stick to nailing the basics and you put in that extra effort, I think I don't want to say it's easy as ever, but it's still very doable to break into a very good company you want to work at in tech sales.
Yeah, I agree. I think like that's the other part of it too. When the market was crazy like 2 years ago, you had a lot of startups that were questionable at best, like hiring people. So people were getting jobs, quote unquote, but were they succeeding? Like questionably, no. But yeah, I think to your point, it's like it's not even that it's like a down market. It's just like we're back to like more normal life.
Neutral.
Like, yeah, for everyone that's like entering the workforce in the last like 5 years, even the last 10 years, like it's literally been the most insane run in the history of the entire world when it comes to like an economic standpoint. So like we're just kind of back to normal. And I think all the major players, like everyone, you know, the Oracles of the world, the MongoDBs, the Salesforces, like all those people are hiring in mass. And there's so much opportunity that people just like psych themselves out about. So yeah.
Yep. Agreed. And I guess that could be a good segue into what it's like actually working as an SDR, like back to that more neutral. Cause I'd say I don't know about you, but my experience, I have seen some noticeable changes about working in tech sales the last 2 years compared to the peak of the market, like 2-3 years ago. I think a theme I'm seeing is people are expected to do more with less. Like there's less people, there's less solutions engineers, because frankly, there's been a lot of layoffs. So there's less solutions engineers, less customer success managers. A lot of companies are more focused on profitability now, which sounds nice on the outside, but on the inside of a company, that means probably they've taken away some tools you used to have to help prospect and things like that. They're trying to lower costs. They've done it through lowering headcount. And what I've found is in tech sales, you have to do more with less. Your expectations, those haven't gone down. You still have metrics and KPIs to hit, but there's not as many resources 2-3 years ago as there used to be. That's what I've seen, but I'm curious what you've seen in the industry and what it's like actually working in tech sales.
Yeah. I think it's funny. It's like, so we, you know, obviously at higherlevels.com, we have Tech Sales Ascension, and that's focused on breaking people in. We did that and grew that, and it's continuing to grow rather rapidly now. And we also, because of a lot of the success we had with graduates, we started an SDR Accelerator cohort. And it's funny, my co-founder, Chris, and I, you know, we worked a lot together, obviously still do, but early on in our careers, I think the biggest thing that we did that helped ourselves, and hopefully kind of answering your question, is I agree. There is the expectation that people are expected to do more with less. However, I think what I'm seeing now in a consistent trend of SDRs that are really excelling in the job is not even that their cold call script is that much better, or their emails are like, you know, completely different, or like using any types of gimmicks. I think at the individual SDR level, the ones that I see succeeding now are the ones that are really focused on the quality of their data. And I think a lot of like, don't make that more than it needs to be. It's not like you're writing Python to like, you know, like figure out your data. But honestly, I think that's one of the biggest things I did just over time. I iterated and kind of found that within our company, there were different lead types. There were different, you know, as a very simple example, like opportunities that were closed lost. You know, anything from like 6 to 24 months old, you could usually drum up new opportunities from that. But I think a lot of people stop there and they're like, okay, let me just run a report on all of the closed lost opportunities, and that's it. And there's so much more data that if you spend time and struggle with, you can really find. And not only that, but once you find, as an example, a report on a lead that downloaded this particular webinar, and for whatever reason, that webinar like generally had buyers that were more interested than the average webinar. Like if you can find nuggets like that, not only can you get more opportunities in the short term, but you can automate that, as an example, in Salesforce, and like have that report continually funnel those leads to you immediately. So I absolutely agree, more with less. However, I think a lot of people are overcompensating by saying like, oh, we don't have this tool anymore, which means I got to spend 2 more hours a day emailing. And it's like, actually, no, step back and find the highest quality leads first, because one, your peers aren't even doing that, and they're trying to, you know, hit it with volume. And two, it's like, yeah, it's just, I think a lot of people just aren't trying to systematize their work. And even before we get there, they're not even putting in enough work to have the ability to take a step back and like start to do that. So I don't know if that answered your question. That was kind of all over the place.
But
I
I agree. I think the answer is you have to work smarter and use data and get your processes down. And going back to that first year I had as an SDR, that's what did it for me. I've never been big in I've never been a big email automation guy. I'm not always the best with the tools at my disposal, but it was getting good company data, like actually looking into what's been what's out there, how can I optimize my work, and then getting those processes down. That's how I went to that stage of feeling like I had to work so hard for every meeting and every opportunity. Towards the latter half, when I had my processes down, it felt like it felt like a game almost. It felt like a game of probabilities, because I knew if I just did these things consistently enough, like statistically, yes, not every week's going to be the same. Some you'll get more meetings than others, but it came down to the process and working smart. I think another big thing for SDR's success, and this hasn't changed, I don't see it talked about enough, is the importance of nailing your internal relationships, like working with your account executive or account executives. During my time as a manager, I found this to be because I managed multiple teams, but often the account executives supporting my teams remained the same. So that I'd see two different reps work with the same account executive. And for one, because they nurtured that relationship from the get-go and showed that they were here to add value to them, it was just night and day, their success with that account executive. When you don't nail that relationship, I feel like it can add a lot of friction to your daily process. Like, is my account executive even going to get back to me if I Slack them or reach out to them? Or are they going to give me an opportunity for this qualified meeting because they know I've been working hard and doing good work for them? Are they going to reward me? Or are they going to play it safe because they don't want to speak to that opportunity in their pipeline? And it's I hate to say it, but that's half the battle, in my opinion, of succeeding as an SDR. And I don't think that's changed. I think that was the same 5 years ago. And I think that'll be the same 5 years going forward. But what's your experience on that and the SDRs that you work with?
Yeah, 100%. I think, it's funny. I'm glad you brought that up too, because I tend to get lost in the technical sauce a little bit, or the tactical sauce. And I think I would just say that that's kind of a prerequisite to exactly that, building a good relationship. With some exceptions, at least what has worked best for me is why I put a focus on the tactics first is get at least a solid enough of a workflow down. So by the time you really get 3 to 6 months into your role, now you can rapidly progress your relationship with your account executive, because you're actually delivering some results and/or showing that you're going about the job the right way. So I think, absolutely. I'm really glad you brought that up, because I would say, the second half of my tenure as an SDR, and certainly Chris, who really harps on this a lot, is that's honestly where you're going to get some of your great opportunities as well. Bring something to the table. Ideally, you can, either, if it's straight up performance, you're over attaining quota, way more than your peers, that's an obvious and easy way to stand out. But even in parallel, maybe you get a big opportunity that closes quickly, or you finally broke into a logo that rep has been trying to break into for 8 to 16 months. Now you're in a great position to really accelerate that relationship, and it's going to become reciprocal throughout your entire relationship. So now, in addition to, you've already got your workflow down, you're hitting 100%, you started to build an internal brand that's hey, Connor worked really hard. Now your rep is going to say hey, you know what? I just got this inbound lead. Oops, I'm out of office today. Why don't you set up that call? And now you just got an extra opportunity. And all of a sudden, again, to some of the points we've talked about, you've got your workflow down to where you can get 80, 100% of the way there on your own. And now, not doing anything else, your AE is helping you out. They're advocating for your promotion. And in the meantime, they're giving you opportunities to help you succeed. And by doing nothing other than nurturing that relationship, you've gone from 100% consistently to 140%. Because they're helping you out. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot we could break down there, but yeah, I think absolutely. And then just cherry on top on that, it's that's why I put an emphasis on the tactics first, because you can't bullshit your way through it either. If you suck at your job and you're trying to talk about golf, good luck, dude.
Not gonna work.
Yeah.
No, I agree. When I was a manager, I considered that the base, getting that relationship down and getting that basic tactical workflow in place and convincing them that you're going to be someone worth spending more time with and worth investing in. Because it can add a lot of friction if you don't have a good relationship with them. I was just going to say something else on that, but I forgot. I'll see if it comes back to me. All right. Well, do we want to turn this into how you've been working with people on all these areas at higher levels, and how higher levels can help people break into tech sales and succeed as an SDR and eventually get that account executive promotion that they're looking for?
Yeah, for sure. So we started higherlevels.com about a year and a half ago. It was branded something else prior, but we were always kind of building with the higher levels vision in mind, and just needed some time to get there. So we've been doing that for like almost 3 years now, helping people break into tech sales. And that's great. I mean, we've had hundreds of people. Literally, we have 2 folks without degrees that broke into AWS. We have several different stories of people who are working at the Oracles of the world, Salesforces of the world, like Ramp, Brex, some of the hottest startups as well. And that's been awesome. I think as we have grown and seen a lot of success there, we started the SDR Accelerator cohort, and we actually just did an early release and are announcing it actually this week of our AE Mastery course. So really the whole goal with the platform is to work, it's a combination of pre-recorded videos, but we also put a very strong emphasis on live coaching. We have weekly group calls where we collaborate. I would say in Tech Sales Ascension, which again is the breaking in course, a lot of people are coming to us and asking us, how should I do this? What do you think about this? The cool thing that I found is as we go to the SDR Accelerator community and now our AE Mastery community, is a lot of times it's much more group conversation. So people, and it's good. Like I don't necessarily have to be the expert in every situation. Like we have calls where the #1 guy at Outreach is collaborating with the #1 guy at Brex. And then we also have some SDRs at other companies around the US, and they're all sharing their notes because they're not competing for the same promotion to account executive. So that's been really cool. It's like, the pre-recorded videos, there's so much stuff there. But I think even just the live community, like I've even, like I took one of our students to a Raptors game when I visited a client in Toronto. So it's really cool. We've got some guys that are actually now working together, helping each other break into their company if their SDR situation isn't great. So building that network, just kind of creating the overall brain trust. There's a ton that we go into from a purely academic and educational standpoint. That's a self-paced academy that we feel no one is really putting together in a cohesive way. But also I think the live community and the ability to build your network outside of your own company has been hugely beneficial to everyone that's part of it. So happy to break it down more, but yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah. And I know I joined the community a few weeks ago. I've been going through the program. It's like everything we've been talking about here today. I guess for the audience, who's the one doing these I know the answer, but who's the one doing the trainings and the recordings, and who would they actually be learning from?
Yeah, so it's me, my co-founder Chris, and then also a guy who used to work at MongoDB, Ian, for Tech Sales Ascension. And then SDR Accelerator at the moment is Chris and myself, as well as the AE Mastery course. But obviously, like bringing yourself on board, and we've got some other folks that we're looking at bringing on to as a part of the team, where our goal is to have kind of that really rigid, kind of like, here's the deep dive tactical stuff. And then we're also going to have and start to foster more contributions from broader people like yourself to these different communities, giving their own examples of their workflow. Because I think, it's really good to have that beneficial deep dive and go super deep tactically. And we provide examples from our own careers. But I found the more we get into it and go into like the SDR and coaching AEs as well, not just the tactical, but they commonly request and really benefit from like seeing that you are as successful as myself and you may have a completely different style. So seeing that contrast and seeing the different ways that people can get results while doing different things stylistically is very beneficial to not only enhance and like pick your favorite things from each person, but also not put the pressure on yourself. Like I have to do it this way. If I don't do it this way, I'm going to fail. So yeah, in short, Chris and myself, and over time, we're going to get a lot more contributions from the broader field and a lot of reputable sources.
Yep. I think the community aspect is key, and the different perspectives too, from people who've been successful. I think one of the problems when people just try and learn this stuff generally on YouTube or LinkedIn is you get a million different perspectives. I think people almost try too much at once and they don't stick with one perspective enough. And I think you got to be careful who you're taking perspectives from too, because you could sell I don't know, enterprise software specifically to like large healthcare accounts. Like you could be an SDR doing that. And do you want to be taking advice from someone who sells SMB, like something totally different? Because yes, there are similarities, but the how you go about selling could be completely different. Even learning from someone who's worked at a very large company versus a small startup, there can be massive differences there. So I think the perspectives that you get there are very key, the community aspect. And yeah, there's no one size fits all. Even on my channel, I teach, here is my process. But what I love to hear is when people reach out and they tell me like they just took little bits and pieces of my process that helped their mentality or helped restructure their workflow or the cold call script they're using or whatever it is. And they'll be like, yeah, that piece really helped me out. Like what you talk about being concise at the cold call opener and just getting into the next part, the phase 2 of the cold call where you deliver what I call value statement. People like that was a game changer for me because I used to be trying all these permission-based openers and stuff. And that's what's talked about in the community. So everything I've seen has been great so far. And it's a way to learn. You'll learn in the community in weeks what it took me back, thinking back the first 2 quarters I struggled, it took me 6 months. Like this is exactly what I would have been looking for when I was joining as an SDR or when I was trying to break in. My process was a little straightforward, but yeah, you're going to learn a lot. What you need to learn fast in the community is what I've noticed. That's been my big takeaway so far.
Yeah. And I think there's like 2 things that I've really noticed the further we've grown this and the more we've gotten into it. One, exactly that. Like, while, yeah, I have some experience, and if you don't have 5 years of tech sales experience, I guess I'm ahead of you, but I've never tried to portray myself as like a guru or the person with all of the answers. And 2, I think, it's always been about multiple perspectives. Like Tech Sales Ascension has 3 main contributors, SDR and Accelerator and AE Mastery. We both have 2 main contributors, and we're bringing more to the table. So it's been about that collection of experiences, finding the balance between here's a very rigid thing you should try and make your own, and then also here's broader perspectives and end results from other people. But 2, I think one of the interesting things that we found the more we've done this is, especially pending the company that you work at, like you're really at the mercy of how much your company invests into training. And what I mean is, like, as an example, aside from if the training is good or bad or all these different things, like there was no real training 3 to 4 years ago for Chris and I when we first started. It was all ad hoc. And sure, you've got like some different guides online for like $150 that are just pre-recorded. But the flips in the gap in the middle is there was no like community, no live coaching, unless your company was willing to invest hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars into corporate-wide training. And I think that's been a really interesting gap that we've had, is like, a lot of people want to tap into, like you were basically completely left on your own to either network with the top performers at your company or find a way to meet other top performers in the industry. And that was completely on you. So I think, to your point, it's like, this is not the one size fits all answer to everything. This is a very tactical guide of things you can figure out on your own over the course of 9 to 12 months, or figure out rapidly in the course of a month or 2 using the program, tapping into verified top performers, and then growing your network organically over time without having to like spend hours messaging random people on LinkedIn who you don't even know if they're top performing SDRs and all of these different things. So
exactly. Exactly. Well, I'm very excited to be working with the team. I agree with everything you said. This is what I wish existed when I was starting out as an SDR. So for those still watching, thank you for being here. There's a link to go check out the Higher Levels platform in the description below. You should definitely go check it out. Reach out to me or Eric if you have any questions. I'll link to his channel down below. I know a lot of you are familiar, but in case you're not, definitely go check out his channel as well, because ton of value on that channel. And yeah, it's been good. I'm excited to work together more going forward. But anything else you'd leave the audience with here before we call it a day?
No, I appreciate you having me, man. And yeah, for everyone watching, like, we reached out to Connor. We definitely trust his stuff. I have a lot of channels reaching out, trying to have me on. And to be honest, I turned down a lot of interviews. I don't like to go on channels that I believe are not pushing the right thing. So yeah, Connor, I know your channel is about to blow up for sure. You got some really, really great nuggets, and excited to see where it goes. So thanks for having me.
I appreciate that. And on that, I'll echo that. I get reached out to all the time to promote various services. I've never even considered it, would never promote or work with anyone that I didn't trust. And I've been following you guys from the very early days. I know you guys practice what you preach. So yeah, I'm excited. We'll definitely do a lot of work together going forward. But yeah, this has been good. And yeah, we'll call it a day here. So
All right. Thanks, man.